this is our site-wide block CSS. Well, not only that's it, but this is it as well. And the main one that is involved in this is this style right here that we reference in our TPL. All right. So if I scroll back up to the top up here, and I do have the notes all set up in our main build here, just so we can kind of refer to it. Okay. But what we've done is we've set up the site-wide block, set the class at homepage display height. Well, that's exactly what this is right here. The fact is that we've got our homepage display right here set up at 1,000 width. Okay, you know, our tables, not our tables, our div tags are set up at 1,001 width. So whatever's going to sit inside of that container, if it's set at 100%, which is apparently how I've got this set up down here, all right, our site-wide block is set up at 100%. Well, the fact is that in our main file up here, and I know I'm kind of flying through here. What am I looking for? Right here. All right, we've got our width set up. So obviously that container and that div tag inside of here is going to show up at this width. All right, and of course down here again, if I can get back to it quick enough, we've set it to display at 100% now. All right, and of course we've defined our height for it. That's really the difficult thing about this. You need to make sure that you are familiar with laying out the div tags. If it's easier for you to use tables, go ahead and use tables. I just did div classes just because I'm more of a fan of using the CSS and just the way that you can stack your content and then stack layers over layers over layers and all that good stuff. All right, that's just sort of the way that we develop. So it's going to be up to you, but that in a sense is what we've been using. And that's really the difficult thing to kind of overcome. You've got to set up your content in the particular layout that you want it to lay out. Like here for this custom one, we set this up in between or right above the actual content. All right, and it's a good spot for it because it's a central location. Now, obviously, you're not going to want something like that site-wide. The fact is, you can create anything. All right, you can make anything happen in that little zone. And again, like the custom footer links, completely formattable. You can do pretty much whatever you want, all right? And of course, it's really not that difficult to create these themes. It's just, a little time consuming to prepare your CSS, all right? The length of time it took me to basically recreate this entire CSS for this tutorial is actually kind of obnoxious. But the fact is that once you have it written, and of course, feel free to use this CSS for whatever you want. Once you've written it, you've got one basing that you consistently use as you create more of your themes, more of your clients' themes, to where you have one central location that you can just go in. You can either adjust the styles or you can copy them and then just rename them. And then, of course, send those blocks after those particular styles that you've changed. Excuse me. So that's really the only thing you need to overcome. Getting familiar with the div tags. I'm sure that since you came and got this, you are somewhat familiar with HTML, otherwise you wouldn't have ended up here, right? So it's really just coming up with a specific width, a specific height. You can set width and height for your builds and just kind of work it within a container. We just, depending on your content, you can obviously expand it, up and down and make people scroll and all that good stuff, all right? And really, for like the application bar, we've set this up just to kind of lock up against the top of the site at all times. And then, of course, you've basically got something that allows the users to, easily refer to if they used it more than once. They can log in. If you got a shopping cart, you can put a shopping cart link up there. You can call dynamic variables and basically say, hey, Joe, whatever, go to your profile, right? Just a typical build that allows you to call, values from the database to actually put on the web page, all right? And, everything else in here is really just the default settings for Drupal. I mean, the core thing that I wanted to make sure that I expressed is that, using your .info files, you can make 500 of these things in this file, all right? The fact is that if you make 500 of them, you have to have 500 different styles of where they're going to actually lay out on the web page. All right, and that's basically how you can create that stuff.